Pfizer and BioNTech's filing for emergency use today is one of many hurdles before anyone gets their hands on a vaccine. Here to explain is health reporter Anna Edney in Maryland. Anna, it's great to have you on Quick Take today. You write that an important meeting for this vaccination approval process, it happens on December 8th. So who's at the meeting and what are they meeting about?
That's right. So the FDA, I've been told, has set aside December 8th through the 10th to convene outside advisors. These are going to be experts in infectious diseases and vaccines. Usually there's about a dozen or so. It can vary meeting to meeting. And they bring issues to them that, are about approving or authorizing drugs or vaccines. In this case, it's going to be about an emergency use authorization for a vaccine. They do this when they kind of have questions about an application that a company has sent in seeking authorization. And also they're trying to sort of increase transparency for this whole process. So at the meeting, the FDA as well as Pfizer will present their take on the results from the clinical trials that Pfizer ran on this COVID vaccine. And then the advisors will talk about them in depth. So, it'll be extremely technical, but it will be able to give people who want it more of an understanding of how this vaccine works and how well it works.
So assuming this meeting goes according to plan in just a couple of weeks, what ends up happening right after that? At what point do Americans on the front lines of this pandemic start to get this vaccine?
Well, the FDA very soon after, most likely, will need to make its final decision. So this advisory panel will likely take a vote at the end of the meeting on whether the FDA should authorize the Pfizer and BioNTech's COVID vaccine, but it's non-binding, and so the FDA will have to make its decision, and it should come pretty soon after. And then the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, they have their own advisors who will want to meet on this. What they do is they make recommendations about who should get the vaccine first, because by the end of December, there's only going to be about 40 million doses, and that's enough for 20 million people because this is a two-shot regimen that people need to take. And so when this committee for CDC meets, they'll most likely recommend that healthcare workers go first, and that's what's expected. So there'll pretty much be just enough shots for healthcare workers to get them. And, states and Pfizer are already planning for how to get these vaccines out there within just days of all of this happening.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, a logistical challenge, too, because of the low temperature that the vaccine has to be stored at before it actually it gets administered. I'm wondering about the plan for states and the entire country to eventually vaccinate the entire population. What does that look like a few months from now?
Well, there will be different tiers. So, and that's something the CDC committee will help out with as well. So healthcare workers likely to go first, and then you're going to see it rolling out to vulnerable populations like people who have pre-existing conditions that make it more likely they could get serious disease, and then the elderly as well, who are at much higher risk of dying from COVID. And eventually, there will, the hope is there will be enough doses for all Americans. That's looking like probably around April or so, and then just because those doses are there doesn't mean everyone's getting them right away, because that's a lot of people. And so, experts like Anthony Fauci and others have said they're thinking, into the summer, and then the entire population at least could have the ability to be vaccinated. We're seeing some vaccine hesitancy among a lot of people. So, that's still a question of whether enough people will get this vaccine to make it really effective at combating the virus.
Yeah, the challenges certainly continue even after the development and logistical challenges of the vaccine. I just want to end with one thing about Moderna. I know we've been talking about Pfizer, but I was really surprised to find in your article earlier today, Anna, that Moderna actually hasn't gotten FDA clearance of any product in its history. Take us through what's been happening with Moderna and how this will be a first for it.
That's right. Moderna is a fairly new company. It was founded in 2010, so it's been working on this new technology that will be used for this vaccine, and it hasn't gotten an approved product through the Food and Drug Administration before. And so, there are things that go along with having an approved product. One of those things is typically your manufacturing facilities would have been inspected by the Food and Drug Administration just to make sure they can make drugs and vaccines correctly and meet U.S. quality standards. And that's not going to happen with Moderna. They've not been inspected before. And when they apply for emergency use authorization, which is different from a full approval, they don't have to be inspected. That's a step that the FDA can skip so that they can get these to people faster.
Bloomberg Health reporter Anna Edney, thanks so much for your time today on Quick Take.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.